if you could just outline where are you guys in terms of your progression as an offense. Obviously, you're in an install period for a certain period. I mean, how much are you kind of through with that and kind of moving on to starting to think about game planning for Penn
Yeah.
State?
Yeah, definitely have cut back on the installation. We feel, comfortable just from a scheme standpoint on what has been introduced to the players. As you go through a year, there are certain things that might get tweaked or added slightly, week to week based on the opponent that you're playing, but you're certainly not trying to wholesale change each week. So the installation has slowed down. There's a few situational things, a few scenarios that you have to cover with the players as you get closer to kickoff. But for the most part, our installation is pretty much wrapped up. There's a few things, obviously, as a staff we've discussed. If there's a certain, defense that you're seeing from an opponent standpoint, but for the most part, we're done. And, brief introduction to our first opponent, which is exciting. So it's been good, and we're moving right along.
Kevin, then Matt.
Yeah, Coach, I'm curious about Miles Marshall and Ty Freifogel. What do they bring at the wide receiver 2 and 3 spots as a dimension of the offense that maybe were a little different than Nick and Donovan last season?
Yeah, I think each player is different for sure. And I think they bring, a level of consistency, a level of dependability. They both have been out there in big moments and performed. And so they've both been very solid and productive, and we're looking forward to them, having a big year for us. So both of them have been great.
All right, Matt and Dylan.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. Obviously, the receivers and the skill guys played with Michael last year some, but, it was, Peyton Ramsey, kind of finished the season for you guys, and then you had to stop and start and all that this year. What have you seen from the passing game as far as their rhythm and timing and their chemistry? You feel pretty good about where it's at, or is it a little bit behind just because you guys haven't had the practice time and the field time you normally have?
I think, Matt, as a coach, we're never going to say that we've got it all figured out. There's always things to improve on. And, my hope is that our last snap this season is our best snap, so our focus really is on just constantly improving. And there definitely has been moments where I feel that we're on it. And then there's been moments where I feel like we need to continue to work. I think that's just coaching. That's going to be the whole season, so I like the work ethic. I like the attitude. I like the ability of the players. Obviously I think there's skill there to be able to pass the football. And, it's, I mentioned this before, it's hard to compare it to other years. It's unlike any other progression from a developmental standpoint. So we're really just taking it one day at a time. The guys are working hard. There's definitely glimpses of us being able to execute at a high level. And there's also things that we need to work on and continue to work on as we get through the season. So that process is never ending. And like I said, we're looking to improve each and every day throughout the whole year.
All right, Dylan, then Zach.
Hey, Coach. I think we asked Cam about this a few weeks ago, but I'm curious from your point of view as an offensive coach, obviously, without maybe going into too much specifics. I mean, what does the defense do to maybe make things challenging on an offense, and what kind of do you like when you kind of have to go up against them in practices?
Is this a trick question, Dylan? Are you trying to get me to the vault? You want me to tell our opponents what gives us problems?
No, I mean, without going into too much specifics, I guess just maybe, I don't know, mentality-wise, if it's nonetheless.
Yeah, I think the best defense is – let me see how I can answer this without telling Penn State what our defense does or what things give us problems. I think the best defenses know what they're doing and do it very fast and aggressively. They play with fanatical effort. They play with great fundamentals. Certainly there are certain schemes that are better or worse, versus different run concepts or pass concepts. But I think the best defenses that you go against, they're so confident in what their job is that they do it at an exceptionally fast rate, and they play with fanatical effort. And, obviously that's been a trademark for Coach Allen and Kane, with our defense. But I think, to your point, I think the best defenses, they know what they're doing, and they do it very fast. And, it's the same on offense. You want you to be able to, for your own group, you want us to be able to execute and do our jobs faster and more aggressively with better technique. than what the defense does with theirs, and that's obviously our job as coaches, to get our guys to play with their hair on fire and be extremely confident in what we're asking them to do. But I think that's a good, judge for both sides of the ball is, I think you play best when you play fast and confidently and aggressively, because that's what the sport requires. So that's a good question. I won't give you too much as far as like specific schemes but really fast, aggressive, confident players always make the competition extremely challenging.
All right, Zach and then Peaks.
Yeah, I'll just ask about those specific schemes. I'll just, just go ahead and diagram those up. I think you've talked about this in different ways, but obviously, you spent a lot of time coaching quarterbacks at different stops. But last season, in coaching tight ends, I imagine you had a more hands-on role in the run game as well. Have there been moments, I guess, since you took over as offensive coordinator where maybe you realize, hey, last season with tight ends and maybe being immersed in the run side of it a little bit more, there's stuff that maybe I is just a little bit more natural or instinctive kind of to the position that maybe you wouldn't have had if you hadn't spent that year with tight ends?
I think that's a really good observation, Zach. I would say without a doubt that I benefited from coaching from that vantage point. I think tight end's a great position to coach because it allows you to see it's like coaching linebackers on defense. You're involved in the run game and in the pass game. I think the same is true on offense for a tight end. And we have a fantastic tight ends coach that has great perspective and great knowledge of both, pass game, run game protections. And so to your point, my career prior to last year had been primarily, on the perimeter, coaching the quarterbacks and thinking about the pass game, not so much techniques. I think at this level, coaches know how to block, zone schemes and gap schemes, but just to understand what things are more advantageous for you as an offense or what things are very challenging or difficult relative to the types of blocks you're asking your offensive players to do, the leverages, the angles, etc. I think it was a fantastic experience for me, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought I grew as a coach. Darren Hiller had a huge part to do with that because he helped me without a doubt. And so it's just been good. It was good for me. I think it's allowed me to hopefully have a better perspective from the seat that I sit in now.
All right, Peaks and Jim.
Hey, Coach, I just had a quick question about Michael Penix. Just compare where he is today versus the player of a year ago. Where has he made the most progress and how that might show itself on the field?
I think I mentioned this before, but I think this is confidence and comfortability with his teammates, his ability to communicate. I think that just takes time. Certainly physically he's developed. I'm not going to sit here and say that his arm's gotten, exponentially stronger. I think it's always been very strong. But just from a physical development standpoint, he's gotten bigger. And then just an ability to communicate with his teammates. I think he's definitely taken steps in the right direction with that.
All right, Jim, and then we'll wrap up with John again.
Hey, Coach, getting to spend the year last year under Kalen with game planning, what did you learn from that standpoint of game planning? And then, of course, what I call the Mike Tyson flip, everybody's got a plan to get punched in the mouth, of being able to flip that plan when the game starts and have to deal with the defensive scheming and personnel and things like that.
Yeah, I think Kalen, I think I mentioned this last week as well. He just did such a fantastic job. I think he had great experience with the schemes that we were running, and certainly got the staff on the same page, in the sense that we were able to adjust and react to different things that we were seeing, and we were collective in that effort, just from a staff standpoint, being able to put our players in the best position. To your point, halftime sometimes too late to make adjustments. You're trying to identify early on in the game how the opponent's trying to play you, and adjust accordingly. Whether you're not, even if it's within the drive, you identify that this is what their plan is, and let's try to see how we can counter and attack that. I think he just did a great job with that, and it starts with his knowledge. His understanding of our scheme, and then certainly the opponent. So he did a fantastic job, and I learned a lot from him, and so I'm thankful for that.
All right, John, last one.
I think guess speaking of secrets, I know you're not going to say exactly what David Ellis is going to do, but what have you seen just in terms of his intelligence as a football player? I mean, to be able to transition from one position, I guess he's recruited as a running back to go to receiver, and to come back. I mean, how much does he have kind of a wide understanding of your guys' offense, and how does that benefit him on the field?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for him, it starts with loving football. I think the guys that truly love football, then they have versatility because they enjoy learning about different schemes, different techniques. And so I think that's where it starts for him. I think he genuinely enjoys to play, enjoys learning about the game, and certainly he has the mental capacity to do it. So we're excited about him and his versatility. And so he's done a fantastic job.